Hi, everyone. My name is Dr. Michele Vecc. I am super excited to invite and have on VecCassociates.com the founder and CEO of MOTH. Her name is Juliet Maskers. And I want to talk a little bit about what you're doing and what MOTH is. MOTH is otherwise known as Minds Open to Heal. What exactly what does MOTH do? What does the organization consist of? What's your mission? We really need to know because people really need to understand how important this organization and what you do in it to provide for the community.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited. We are so lucky to have you as a board member on our team. So MOTH stands for Minds Open to Heal. But the name actually originated from the idea that moths are attracted to light. And so our whole spiel is really helping people guide others towards light through periods of darkness. So, how do we do that? Well, our main business model is providing mental health training and education to organizations. So, whether it be a school, a first responder unit, a company, a nonprofit, what we're going to do is we're going to go in and we're going to train staff and employees how to better understand mental health and how to provide peer support to those within their environment. So that can be learning anything from how to recognize the warning signs in an employee or a coworker that's struggling with depression or anxiety. And how do you tell the difference between someone who's having a bad day versus someone who's experiencing ongoing stress and anxiety versus someone who's in a state of crisis? And how are you going to differentiate based off of behavioral, psychological, and physical signs and symptoms? Then we go into having conversations about mental health, how to respond to questions about mental health, and crisis intervention. So panic attacks, self-harm, suicide prevention, and self-help and coping strategies.
That's awesome. So, an organization contacts you. Do you do like a needs assessment with the person who contacted you? How do you set up the trainings? Do you have one big presentation? Do you have small groups? I mean, what does a person who wants to contact you from the organization, what are some questions that they need to ask you so they can better get into the know of how this is going to work for their agency or their organization?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question. So initially, when we get a reach out from a client or a potential client, we want to gather as much information as possible. So we want to know, what industry are they working in? If it's a school, what kind of school is it? Is it a university, a lower education school? What area is it? What's the typical demographic of their population? And how many people do they want to train, and what have been their biggest challenges when it comes to mental health. So, the more we can understand about where their challenges are, the more we can customize our training to specifically fit and address their needs. Our training is provided in a 2-hour format. So, we do 2 hours training with the certification at the end, and our trainings are available virtually via Zoom or in person. And then later this year, we will be launching a self-paced version of the course so people can go through it in their own time. But yeah, it's usually a 2-hour training, and then we offer presentations and stuff like that as additional services.
This sounds absolutely amazing. And right now, mental health needs to be at the forefront of every organization, at every school, hospital, agency. And these trainings sound like something exactly what would be helpful to help agencies help their employees and to understand more about mental health. As Moth progressed, what inspired you, Juliet, to develop this organization? What promoted this in your spirit to put this out there in front of people?
Yeah, so I struggled with mental health growing up. I had mental illness in my family. Um, Me and my siblings kind of all struggled with anxiety. And growing up, it was just always something that we didn't talk about. It was something that we didn't understand. I didn't necessarily know how to talk about anxiety because I didn't even know what anxiety was or how to put a label on it. And it wasn't until I got to college that I finally got diagnosed with my mental health issues and got really involved in the mental health space because I felt so freed by my diagnosis. I felt so freed by understanding, like, okay, this makes sense. I'm not just crazy, that there's a name to this. There's other people
Yes.
that experience it. And so as I was educating myself, I began, trying to educate other people and spread awareness. And then while I was running a student run mental health nonprofit, I lost one of my friends to suicide. And I was devastated and I was confused and I was consumed with guilt. When you experience a suicide, you go through so many different variations of grief. And I think one of the most common ones with suicide is guilt. Like, what could I have done differently? Did I make a mistake? And here I am.
It's kind of like that bargaining
Right.
phase of grief.
Yes. The
Yes.
bargaining phase of grief. Absolutely. And I really asked myself, if I consider myself to be such a mental health advocate, would I be able to recognize the warning signs of someone who is suicidal if they were right in front of me? Like this friend I was in contact with over text, we would check in every so often. But he went to a different school. We didn't see each other that regularly. But I really, I asked myself, what if he was right in front of me? What if I was going to school with him? What if I saw him every day? Like, would I have known?
Right.
And I realized there was no way that I could have. I had never learned the warning signs of suicide, and I had never learned how to help someone who was struggling with suicidal ideation or even just struggling with their mental health in general. Like, we were talking about the fact that mental health existed, but we weren't helping people understand it.
Yes.
So that's where I realized, education is the gap in this movement. There's all these brands and celebrities and athletes and coming out and talking about the fact that mental health exists. And then there's forms of treatment which help people process and cope and live with their mental health issues. But then 70% of people who receive a mental health diagnosis won't seek out treatment because of the stigma associated with doing so. And yes, awareness plays a huge part in preventing stigma, but people still fear what they don't understand.
Right.
And they can be aware of something and not understand it. That fear leads to negative assumptions, and those negative assumptions perpetuate that stigma that serves as that pervasive barrier preventing people from getting treatment. So it's really the missing piece of the puzzle. And I felt like I didn't know I was doing research. I couldn't find a lot of people who were addressing it. And so I figured, I would make that my mission.
It's a beautiful personal story, and it's a beautiful way to take a personal story that you had been dealing with and a personal friend that you had known, and create a mission to help as many people recognize and educate. And that's the first thing, is in order for it to be treated, you have to know what's going on. You have to know the root of the problem. And so the education and the awareness and the resources and the insight and the trainings are so helpful, because that's a stepping stone in terms of if you decide to get treatment. At least you know what's going on. When you had what was going on with you earlier in your life, when you got that diagnosis, you felt like, okay, now I can actually do something about it.
Right.
I can actually do something about it because now I know what it is. So a
Right.
lot of times people feel something, they feel something that's off or wrong, but they can't identify it. And these trainings and this awareness about mental health helps to identify what might be surfacing for them. So this is a
Yeah.
beautiful personal story that transgresses to professional mission and a personal mission for you and for other people that are touched by your organization.
Thank you. Yeah, and just one thing I wanted to add is it's as I've been in therapy for years, and I've gone through different waves of, different types of treatment and medication and all of that I'm so grateful for. But mental health is not a linear journey, right? And so
Right.
there's so many highs and lows, and you have to practice consistent care. Like, if
Exactly.
you went through a period of time where you didn't shower and you didn't brush your teeth, like, your hygiene would become a problem and you would get sick more often. And then if you started doing it again but then stopped doing it again, like, those issues are always going to come back when the practices are out of place. And what I went through when I, like, 2 years into this company, is I was so focused on my work that I stopped taking care of my mental health. One of my therapists had retired and I delayed getting a new one. I actually got to a point where I was really suicidal myself, and I went through a really dark phase. And the like the luckiest thing happened to me, which really validated the company, which was that the people that I had used as my guinea pigs when I started the company, like my friends and family that I was like, please go through this training, give me feedback. Those people started to pick up on those warning signs of
Mm.
me and that I was
Oh my God.
struggling. And
Oh,
they started reaching out and asking the right questions and offering the right types of support and reassurance. And they really saved my life. And so it was so interesting that something that I created, I never expected to be on the opposite end of.
that is a full circle, like, what a great story. What a great, what a great narrative.
Yeah. It
It's a,
really it
it's a
really
full,
was a good proof of concept.
oh my God. Yes, absolutely. I'm interested in knowing, like, when we talk about mental health in the workplace, um, how does mental health actually affect people in their careers that you noticed, and how does it affect their productivity, their retention? How does it affect them?
Yeah, absolutely. So when we have a sickness, whether it's mental or physical or a disability in some way, it's going to affect every aspect of our life. So, when you're looking out for signs and symptoms in someone else, and you're trying to decipher whether or not they are in that, like, day-to-day stress and anxiety, or if they're struggling, um, you want to pay attention to the impact it has on their daily life. So, are they able to maintain their routine? Are they able to um, be consistent with their responsibilities, with their social obligations? And so, when someone's in the struggling with mental health, whether it starts at home or whether it starts at work, it's going to affect them no matter what. And so,
Right.
depression has caused a huge deficit and issue in the economy because of the lack of productivity that comes when people are depressed. You don't have motivation. And we saw in a study done by Harvard Business Review that in 2021, 50% of people left their job because of mental health related reasons. And that issue rises to 68% amongst millennials and 86% amongst Gen Z. So 86% of people in Generation Z who left their job in 2021 did so because of their mental health. So we know that people are being affected by it. We know that it's affecting their job, and it's also affecting how they feel about their workplace environment. Like, do they
Right.
feel supported by their employer? If they had a conversation with their boss or with HR about mental health, how did they react? And if they don't react appropriately because they don't have the appropriate training, then it's not going to make that employee want to be loyal to that company and stick around. So
Right.
it really has a pretty dramatic impact in the workplace. And a lot of times when we talk with companies, and there's so many fears around and stigmas around mental health still, and people
That
are.
is that's one thing that I definitely want to ask you. Like, these companies that are upper management, what is stopping them? What is stopping them from reaching out to an organization like yourself, to get these trainings? What is the biggest barrier for these organizations? Are they thinking that it's not in their budget, or what is the problem here?
Yeah, I think there's two big reasons. I think one, that funds are not allocated for mental health related reasons. When
Hmm,
companies are putting together their budget, they don't think about mental health. So that just doesn't factor in.
right,
It's not like widely accepted in society in the same way that if you go and get a job and you're a full-time employee, you expect your employer to provide you with insurance.
right.
And so that's a given. That's a no-brainer for companies, and to have something that's focused on physical health, but it's not the same with mental health. And so there's budgets, and budgets get cut. Another huge issue and a huge barrier is fear,
Yeah,
and fear of liability. And so a lot of employers and companies are worried that if they start the conversation about mental health in the workplace, that it's just going to bring on liability. It's going to cause more conversations to be had about mental health, which is going to cause more opportunities for people to respond incorrectly, which is going to cause liability for the company.
oh wow, I never really
Re-
thought of it like that.
right. Really, what research shows is that 65% of people are already having conversations about their mental health with someone in their workplace. And in a study done, less than 50% of that 65 reported receiving a supportive response. That was a research study done by Mindshare Partners. And so what we see is that people are having conversations about mental health, whether we like it or not, whether we're prepared for it or not. And when we avoid the subject and we avoid training, that that is what creates liability. People not being properly equipped when you
Right.
have the opportunity to properly equip them. Um, and if you have the option to discourage conversations about mental health or encourage conversations about mental health, you might as well be on the side that supports what the employees are already doing.
Right.
So that's a really a big issue that I see, that I try to help clients understand.
Yes. So my next question leads right into this, and these are for the decision makers in companies, for them to understand what are the benefits to implement mental health training education by your company in their work, for their workplace and for their employees. What is the benefits? Research has shown, statistically has shown, that you've gotten from CEOs, COOs, head administration, that would encourage and push people to take on and create more of a budgetary means for this important topic for their employees.
Yes. Well, the benefits are creating a workplace environment where people feel supported. Everybody wants to feel supported by their employer, as I just mentioned. But, aside from the obvious reasons or the reasons that we already discussed, that it improves productivity, positive mental wellness improves productivity, it improves employee retention, it improves liability, response, prevention of liability. If you really want to talk about money, for every dollar invested in mental wellness programs, companies can expect to see an at least $3.42 return on healthcare costs. So their healthcare costs are decreasing as they're invest 3 times the amount that they're increasing a budget to implement mental wellness.
That is I mean, I think, or CEOs and COOs, that resonates. When you talk about finances and budget, that resonates with, the top dogs and companies, because they're going to be actually in the long term spending less when there is education and training and awareness, versus on the flip side, will they be spending more on insurance policies and insurance plans?
Yeah, and people taking paid leave
Paid
because
leave, Florida Medical Leave Act. People take all the time. I fill out paperwork for people that are under immense amount of mental pressure and stress. And, it creates a deficit for the company and a big problem for the company.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So, you know, it's easier to, you think it's easier to stick to the old ways and just say like, this is what's working. And so let's stick to it. But it's not working. Like that's what people
It's
have to
not.
get over. It's not working. It hasn't been working for a really, really long time. You're working against yourself.
Yes.
So that's what, yeah. So that's what I'm always trying to get people to understand.
Well, I think people are, this is the thing that people have to they got to be a little bit more progressive and not be so resistant, change resistant. Like this old way and this old mentality of doing things is not working. And if something's not working, it's the definition of insanity. Why would we keep
Right.
doing it? So let's try something different. Let's integrate something new. Let's get our employees to feel that they are really being cared about. Let's have the conversations that are already being had, and let's invest a little bit more into our employees' mental health and their well-being. And I think that that's really important as we come up to the month of May in terms of mental health awareness. So what should companies do during this month of the month of May to show their employees that they care about mental health?
Yeah. It's almost to a point where companies are really, they're making a big mistake if they're not going to acknowledge mental health awareness month, because mental health is at the top of, it's such a big topic of conversation in society right now.
Yeah.
And so it's like if a company doesn't acknowledge Women's History Month, or Black History Month, or it's a big miss. And so it's one thing to send out an email and say it's Mental Health Awareness Month, like just letting you know we're thinking of you guys, and actually holding events and providing opportunities and really using that month as a moment to focus on it. Because during the rest of the year, like every industry has their busy period, and every industry has their time where they're like, we're so focused on this. Like it's for accountants, it's tax season. For other companies, it's for fashion, it's New York Fashion Week, and all of that. But you really need to, so it's easy to be like, we don't have time to focus on this right now. But May, it's there, it's begging you to acknowledge it. And your employees are waiting, like they're waiting to see and hear what you're going to do. And that's going to depend on how they talk about your company. That's going to depend, that's going to impact how they talk about their job, whether or not they acknowledge it on LinkedIn. Like employees are using LinkedIn a lot and Glassdoor to speak out about how they feel about their employer. And I've been seeing a lot of negative stuff out there. So, you really want to make your employees feel supported, and do the right thing. Just do the right
Well,
thing.
I feel like if employers make their employees feel supported and cared about on a personal level, not just as an employee, but personally as well, the employee will work harder for the employer.
Right.
It's
Yes.
just like a boom, I mean, come
Mhm.
on, I mean, who wants to work for somebody who is, giving their employees such a hard time personality wise, or, politically, or
Yeah.
why, or negativity or toxicity in their work environment? Why would you want to work for that? You have to live and you breathe your work most of the day. So,
Yeah.
it's an investment in people. It's an investment in your company. It's an investment of your employees that bring in, you know, revenue, or, education and success for their companies. So yes, people are talking, and they should be talking about if they're feeling supported and how they're feeling supported, so other companies can get on board with progressive companies and what they're doing.
Right. And when it comes to recruiting too, like if
Yes,
you're trying to recruit new employees, they want to know what you stand for. They want to know what your benefits are.
right.
And to be able to say like, yeah, we do mental health training every year. We have consultants come in and talk about how to improve mental health morale in the workplace, and we have access to therapists and psychiatrists through our programming. Like that is a huge attention grab, because like we talked about earlier, mental health is one of the main reasons that people leave their jobs or are unproductive at work. So it really
Right.
it all plays into it.
Absolutely. So now that we talked a little bit about you, we talked a little bit about your mission, how can a school or company get in contact with Moth to book a very necessary training or presentation done? So how do people get in contact with you?
Yeah, so they can go to our website, which is www.mothhealth.com, and they can review our services there, and then they can fill out a contact form or a book now form, and that will allow them to get in contact with us, and then we'll give them the intake form. They can also email us at info@mothhealth.com, or if they want to talk to me directly, they can email Juliet@mothhealth.com, Juliet. And then we're all about community building. We're all about positivity. So if you want to follow us on our socials, we're always sharing information, educational bits and motivation bits. You can find us at Moth Health on Instagram.
Awesome, awesome. And you also have some cool products as well. And I want to share a little bit about the products that I received that I will be using as a therapist in my stress management and anxiety management medical model group sessions. And it's a little package. And I feel, tell us a little bit about the different things in this package. We have mints.
Mm-hmm.
We have a lavender cloud scent texture. Amazing. Really, really wakes me up. Who needs coffee when you have this? Honestly. A stress ball, which is great for tactile, frustration and stress reducer. Scented candle. And we also have essential oil blend. So tell me a little bit about what this package and this product, what it means, how can people get a hold of it? What is it supposed to do for people?
Yeah, absolutely. So we call them our moth kits, or we like to refer them to as our mental health first aid kits too. Like every household and like store or company needs to have a first aid kit. So why not have a mental health first aid kit too?
Absolutely. I love
And
it.
yeah, so each of these items in the kit can be used as a meditation device. So the instructions that come with the kit will tell you, how do you use a mint as a meditation device? If you are in a conference room or you're in on the subway, and you don't have the ability to go on your phone and do a 15-minute closed-eyed guided meditation, then what you can do is you can put a mint in your mouth and you can walk yourself through the 5 sensory attributes of that mint. So what does it taste like? What does it smell like? Feel like against your teeth? Sound like when you bite into it? And while you do that, you're going to decrease sensory overload going on around you. So the slime can be used for sensory overload. It can be used for creativity. It can be used to improve, productivity throughout the day. They all have their little tips and tricks attached in the bag, in the kit, and we love these kits for anybody. We sell them to consumers, we sell them to businesses, we sell them to schools. They're great to have in addition to the training, and yeah, we're excited to hear the feedback from you using them in your therapy practices.
Well, as a therapist, what this actually does in terms of stress and anxiety, it's more for using all your senses, which is actually a therapeutic technique called grounding. And the grounding technique is you're awakening your senses. And this kit touches upon every senses that we talked about, whether it be taste, touch, smell, whatever the case may be. So this is actually really part of a grounding technique to help reduce anxiety and get focused in the here and now. So this will be used in my stress management and anxiety management courses, when we teach them the medical model and Beckett Associates. So thank you so much for sending this to me, and we'll be sharing this amongst our participants in the group with our group members.
Amazing. Thank you so much. I really appreciate your support.
Absolutely. Thank you, Juliet, for being a spokesperson for MOTH and being the head of it for this amazing mission that you conquered and that you're enduring. And thank you so much for having this candid conversation about mental health and how we can both facilitate good awareness and education in the community. And I just appreciate your time and your education and your insights. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you so much, Michelle.
Have a great day.
You too.